Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Tech Days Online, special DDD Flavor Edition, streaming to you live by the power of Facebook. Those are words in a combination I'm not sure I ever thought I'd say. Thank you for joining us. We are at the Developer Community Conference, which is in Reading at the Microsoft HQ. And we've been doing a series of short interviews today where basically as people finish speaking, we crack them on the back of the head and drag them into our little mini studio. So with me now is a man too cool for a surname, Christos, the Premier Field Engineer. Welcome, Christos.
Nice to be here.
I'll start by saying, what is a Premier Field Engineer, just for the folks who don't know?
Premier Field Engineer is it's a concatenation of being a consultant, a developer, and a solution architect, all mangled together. And what we do is we go to customers and help them achieve the highest value out of the cloud, sometimes not even cloud. So we'll do sessions on Azure and .NET, sometimes even Node.js. So it's a lot of different things, and it's a very fun job to be in.
Okay, that sounds really cool. And your session at DDD today was all about serverless, which is a topic that I'm really interested in as well. And I know that there have been some pretty big changes in the serverless area in Azure that were announced at Build. So what were you talking to people about today in that kind of area?
So serverless with Azure is all about functions and logic apps, but it's also the infrastructure that goes below that. So you have things like Cosmos DB and messaging and queuing and application gateways that all are provided to you by the power of Azure. Mm-hmm. So what you care about in more or less is where do I deploy my code, where do I run it, but you don't care how that code runs. So I have a nice slide there that says serverless means no servers, more or less, which is not the case. We do provide all the infrastructure for you, and we just allow you to provide business value by deploying the code that you need.
I think that the key thing for me is that with traditional app services, eventually I'm still renting clock cycles. My website's deployed, it's running 24/7. But the key difference with functions, of course, is I only pay for those clock cycles I actually use on the dynamic plans. If I execute for a couple of seconds, then I'm only paying for that. And that's the big difference, I think, with serverless over traditional in my mind.
Correct. There are actually two ways to run functions today. You can go with a traditional app service plan, mm-hmm. where you pre-allocate your resources, whether that's a standard or a premium, and you're prepaying for that as you use it. And you deploy functions on top of that, and you know that you have predictable workloads. Mm-hmm. That's the perfect candidate for that. You have something that runs every 10 seconds or every 10 minutes. It can run for a few minutes. It can be 100 executions a day or a month, but you know how much you need to allocate. But it's the other way where we're talking about IoT and unpredictable workloads, where your application may see unsteady or unpredictable requests coming in, and for that you need to scale dynamically. And that's the consumption plan, where you only pay per execution. There's no pre-allocated resources. And this is the one that I encourage people to go to, because if you only have a function runs once, then you don't pay for it. And it's all event-driven as well. So functions are built on top of web jobs, mm-hmm. which were the predecessor of functions. And then we took that SDK and we made it a lot more easy to work with, and a lot more scalable as well, running independently on its own. So you can also use either functions or logic apps. We always need to remember that serverless is also logic apps. And I personally encourage people, if they can do it with logic apps, they should do it, because they don't have to deploy any code. Less code, less maintenance, less risk. If you can do it with logic apps, then that's when you move to functions.
Okay. And from a coding point of view, am I tied to .NET, C#, or do I have some choice of technologies and languages that I can deploy into these?
So we bring you a wealth of languages, okay. which are expanding as well as we speak. So out of the box, we support C#, we support .NET, just C# for now. I think there's a plan as well for VB.NET. Somebody raised a GitHub item, and they took it seriously. They said, okay, well, VB.NET will cater for that. We do F#, JavaScript, so Node.js, but we also do Ruby, Python, Bash, and Batch. And obviously PowerShell. PowerShell is very powerful because it gives you direct access to function APIs, Azure APIs, which means you can manage your infrastructure through functions. A very powerful tool.
That's quite cool. So I know you've been doing some demos and things as part mm-hmm. of your session. Have you got time to maybe do some of those for us here and show the folks what is cool about Azure Function, and maybe talk about some of the new things that were announced at Build and what the differences are from when they were first released.
Absolutely. So the Functions team has worked tirelessly to bring a lot of new features and make it a lot more complete. So remember, we're still running on top of the app service plan. And over here on the portal, once we switch to my PC, I will show how you can start working with functions and how you can deploy them. So here we have a function app that I have deployed. We have 3 functions there. That one of them is written in JavaScript, the other 2 in C#. You can add as many functions as you want from here, so that scales based on your needs, and you can group them as you want.
Okay.
But we have things like settings here, where you go in and platform settings. So this is very similar to what the web app platform gives you. So you come in here, you can define things like SSL and custom domains, which is very useful if you're cautious about security. You can do push notifications. We provide security through cores, but we also give you advanced tools like Kudu and the console, so you can actually run quite a few advanced things. But it's very easy to onboard. I mean, you go in here, you say, I want to create a new function, and we have a nice wizard that will take you through the process. So there are 2 ways to do it. One is where you go through the wizard and you say, I want to create these are the most popular ones that we tend to have, a webhook or a timer or a data processing. You'll notice that we have C#, JavaScript, and F#. These are our most popular languages. So you click on that and say, I want to create a new function. Or if you know exactly what you're looking for, you can go through this template where you can define the language that you want to use. I've switched that to read-only, that's why. Oh, no, there you go. So you have bash, bats, so you can choose the language. I'll go with JavaScript, and you can say what kind of triggers you want to have, because remember, this is all event-driven. So just to take the simplest example, we can just go with an HTTP trigger, which is this one, and I'll select that one, and it will say, how would you like to name your application? So there you go. That's all I need to do. It will go and bootstrap everything for me, and that's our function already here. So you can see there, let's make it slightly bigger. So there you go. You have the function, which is ready to run. You can test it through here if you want to, so we can click on that. It will run. You'll notice that we have the results down here. You even pass the parameters that we need. So it gives us a very good example about what we need to do.
Right.
And then you can start looking into the details, like view files. You can change how you test it, post or get. You can add parameters dynamically. So it's a fully complete IDE on the cloud. You don't have to have anything on the local environment. You can edit them as you go through and learn about how to use functions, and can do some really advanced stuff.
Okay.
But if you choose then to do it through your development environment, we do provide an excellent CLI, the core tools as we call them, which run on your local machine. And if I switch to that, you'll notice that I have a project here sitting. Let me just hide everything else. And we have you download it through NPM. So it's an NPM package you need to download. I have it installed on my machine, and all you have to do is just say func init, which is going to actually, I'll just hide that. Let me just. So this will show us all the commands. You can see it's a serious tool because we have ASCII art over there. You can't be a serious tool without ASCII art, obviously. And this gives you all the options you have here for how to use the tool. But just on the core, you just do func init, which is going to initialize our function, add some files there. You'll notice that we already have git ignore, which means that we know, or we try to encourage people to use source control as well with their functions. And you can create a new func new. We'll take you through a wizard very similar to what Yeoman does. So it's a templating engine. And again, you choose the language you want: C#, BATS, F#, JavaScript. And again, in this instance, I'll use JavaScript. There's a reason for that. If you use JavaScript, it allows you to debug through VS Code. So I want to do a complete demo here. So I'll leave the name default. When I created the files, if I fire up Visual Studio Code, then it will load the code for us. I'll put a breakpoint straight away. So this is all the files. I'll put a breakpoint here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to debug through the command line. So func run. You need to pass the function name because you can have multiple functions there. Remember, it can be a full solution there with a lot of APIs. Okay. And I'll say --debug. So that tells this is the runtime engine that we use on the cloud as well, just running locally on your machine. So you'll see that we have something spinning at the background. This is the engine running our function locally. And then I can go and grab the URL. But before I do that, I need to kick off a debug session inside Visual Studio Code. So let's come in here, go to debugger. You'll notice straight away up here, we have the definition to attach to functions. So I'll kick that off. Now we're listening for any incoming calls. I'll go to my browser, open a new window, pass in the appropriate URL and the appropriate parameter, and name equals test, and straight away you'll notice that we hit the breakpoint. Now, this is a full development environment running locally. Then now you might say, well, this is an HTTP request coming from your local browser, but I could be debugging against a blob trigger that we have on the cloud. Somebody drops a file there. I will hit a breakpoint here that which is going to hit the same exact way. I can intercept the message and then pass on whatever I want to do as part of the continuation of the function.
Okay.
So it's not just a local ID, it's a full end-to-end development environment.
Right. That is cool.
Yeah,
definitely.
I was going to do the demo on Visual Studio, but I kicked off an update which has been going for 5 hours. And there's a reason why I wanted to do that, and it's important to know about it. It's because Visual Studio Preview now has brought a new model for working with functions when you do C#, which is a class-based precompiled function, which has brought a lot of things like testability and full end-to-end CI/CD. So a lot of improvements have gone in there, and we're expecting that to be released fully as part of the Visual Studio tooling, not an extension anymore, which will bring functions in par with things like web apps and console apps.
Yeah, so right now it's an extension because it's still in development, isn't it? And they're encouraging people to download it and trial it, give some feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that change in deployment's a real big thing for me, because right now, if you want to do that sort of CI/CD test and deploy, you can wire a Git repo up to a function. I think that's right.
Correct. Yes.
But for me, that certainly wiring it into my dev repo was, I don't want to do that, even with different branches. So what I've been helping customers do is basically clone into an artifact repo.
Very good.
So at least we've got a gatekeeper there.
Correct.
But I think actually being able to take advantage of the power of the sort of build and release pipeline tools that we've got in things like VSTS is a better way.
Yes, it is a better way.
And it's nice to see them working on that. I think that they've been quite responsive to a lot of feedback around that, haven't they?
The community is very open, and the whole team, the whole function, runtime, and everything else is actually open source. So they're actively listening on GitHub and Stack Overflow. People will just jump in the opportunity to help our customers. Now, mention DevOps. There are workarounds right now. So if an enterprise level solution needs to be implemented, and people feel that the tooling is not mature, we do have established patterns that allow you to go and do proper CI/CD using things like the Kudu API or ARM templates to deploy your code. So there are workarounds until the preview tooling goes into RTM.
Right. Okay, that's great. I'm smiling here because you've got an article there by Andrew Westgarth, who's one of the guys that's actually involved with organising the community conference that you and I are both currently at.
Absolutely. And this is fantastic because what Andrew and his team have done is they brought the Azure Functions runtime that you can deploy in your on-premises environment to take advantage of your idle resources to run functions, which means that you can have something very similar to Azure Stack, but a cut-down version to that. It's the ability to run functions and deploy functions against your local environment, so you can have that elasticity within your own data center, and you can take that stuff or that solution, and once you're mature enough, you can migrate that to the cloud. But maybe some of our customers do not want to run their function on the cloud, and they want to take advantage of that event-driven functionality.
So is that the stuff that they were talking in the build keynote, where you're pulling your function logic down locally, the whole, not fog computing, intelligent edge, that's what they were talking about, wasn't it? And of course you can run it in Stack as well, if you're looking.
If you want to, you can run in Stack as well. But if you want to have a standalone runtime environment, you can deploy and run your functions on your local data center or your local resources, then that's the solution to go for, and that's fantastic. You can actually go and download the preview today, and I think it's here. We'll provide the links later on if you want to, but this is there, ready for download and prime for people to test it.
Great. Absolutely great. And the team are really keen on getting feedback, I know, and respond quite well to that feedback. So,
absolutely, and they're very open-minded as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Go download it, give it a go. I think that the thing for me with this, that there's a benefit of consistency, isn't there? That I can write the same code and run it in any of the different locations that I want.
Exactly.
Public cloud, private cloud, or frankly on my machine. So
we know that some customers are not ready for the cloud yet, but they want to take advantage of what the cloud has to offer, this is where it's a perfect position for Azure Stack. But functions will bring that functionality without the complexity of the Azure Stack, which is a lot easier to go and deploy into one server or multiple servers and take advantage of your resources.
So you're a PF, you're dealing with customer engagements. Where are you seeing the uptake in functions? Are you seeing it more with customers that are building greenfield applications that are born in the cloud, if you like, or are you having conversations with customers who are looking to re-architect applications that they might be moving into either the cloud or just doing a refresh on, or are you seeing more at the moment that customers are not looking for, if you like, production projects, if you like, they're still kicking the tires of the technology? What kind of uptake are you seeing?
All three. We just released a production solution for a customer, a massive bank in the UK, that they went from the traditional data warehousing and data processing on their own premises environment, ingesting data from a third-party provider, to implementing all that using logic apps and functions. Okay. And we cut down the expected time for the project from 9 months to 2 months.
Wow.
That's including the learning curve for the development team, going from knowing nothing about serverless to being able to deploy to production. And now they're taking that model into other projects. Now other customers will say, well, we don't really want to use them as a solution for an application, but we can use them for things like managing backups or orchestrating stuff around our Azure infrastructure. Or they can be used for things like gluing systems together. Maybe they have a mature system running in some area of the business, and then they want to pull some data from another area of the business. In the traditional way, they will have to create some kind of an API between the two systems and something to pull the data between. Now with Logic Apps, you say, this is my connector for this system, and that's my connector for that system. Every time something changes in either end, just go and do something. So it's the glue that runs everything. I like to refer to serverless as the Swiss Army knife of the cloud. It can do all these amazing things that people are not aware of.
I like that. That's a good summary, is that. So we've only got a few minutes left. Because we've been dragging people like yourselves out of the community conference, I've been trying to ask them a couple of fairly pointed questions, just to try and explain to people two things, really. One, I'm interested in your thoughts as to why people should attend a community conference like DDD.
Sure.
What do you get out of it as somebody who turns up to watch the sessions? And also, why do you speak at a community conference like DDD? What do you as a speaker get out of it?
Okay, let's start with the first question. Okay. Why you should attend? Sometimes not about just the knowledge that you acquire in these conferences. It's about networking. It's about learning what the other people in the industry do. Networking and finding people interesting enough that can help you maybe in your career, or maybe help you in finding a solution to a problem. Having these interesting conversations with other people and seeing what they're doing. Obviously learning about new stuff, like how can I use functions, how can I use CQRS, how can I use .NET Core. Sometimes not even about .NET technologies. It's learning about what other people do with other stacks that maybe be something that we're missing for our industry and we need to bring it into our ecosystem. So it's about learning all these different things, and I always find them invaluable in terms of the stuff I get. I always get energized by speaking to people and do these things.
Okay. On this corridor conversations, like
it is, yeah. It's like the water cooler conversation, but at a much larger scale with all these random people that you've never met. So if you are attending, I will encourage you to go out and speak to everyone that you come across. You'll be amazed about the talent and the people that attend these conferences. Okay. And the second question is, why do I do it? Obviously, I get energized by speaking to people, seeing what they do in their life. I actually started speaking at DDD Dundee in 2015. That was my first ever public speaking engagement, and I was scared to death, but it's a very welcoming ecosystem, especially the DDD conferences. They don't have that pressure of, I'm paying a lot of money, so I'm expecting to see this very highly policed talk. It's encouraging for new speakers as well to attend, and everyone's very welcoming. There's always interesting conversations happening. People are happy to ask questions. I find them a lot more friendly and toned down and informal, rather than the very expensive conferences. Obviously, they have their own value because they will attract really established developers and speakers, but you want to find the thin line. And they're local as well. I mean, we have so many DDD around the UK and in Australia now, which is, a lot of opportunity there. If you can attend one, then make sure you follow up and attend the one closer to you.
Absolutely. And I know you were saying earlier that you're hoping to try and get DDD Scotland running maybe next year, perhaps?
Hopefully, yeah. Right now I think it's probably going to be too late for autumn, but we can set something up for early next year. and we should have that diverse ecosystem again happening. I know there's a lot of developers in Scotland that don't want to miss out on that opportunity, so we'll try to revive that and hopefully keep it going.
Great. And if there are people watching who want to lend a hand and get engaged with that, then Christos is the person to contact to try and resurrect, get DDD Scotland running again next year, which would be great. I've never spoken in Scotland. I'd enjoy that.
We should make it happen then.
Absolutely. Right, look at that. 15 seconds on the timer. Fantastic.
It's
well,
perfect timing,
so,
isn't it?
Christos Matskas, thank you very, very much for joining us. Thanks for taking the time to talk to people on the feed. We hope you're enjoying this. If you thought this was useful, go and have a look on Channel 9. We've been talking to a bunch of different speakers today, and recordings will start appearing shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.